welcome to the Third Youth First In podcast. Hello, Geno.
What's up, Keith? How are you?
Not much. I'm doing well. Yourself?
Good, man. What have you been up to?
Well, a lot. I've just been thinking to our buddy Jeremy Billick. He's going to be getting married.
Yeah, I'll see you there.
I'm the best man at his wedding. So the other day, apparently when I give my speech, I have to do a walk on the song.
So what's that song going to be, or is it a surprise?
So I don't know. I've been thinking about a couple different things. Obviously, I don't know if you know, but I like James Taylor.
Really?
So I was thinking about a James Taylor song, but I couldn't quite find one that I sort of liked for a walk-up song.
Not Mexico, or
yeah, I don't know. There's a couple I was thinking of, but I think we settled on a song that actually has a sort of not a special meaning, but something me and Jeremy used to listen to a lot back in the day.
Oh, cool.
So I sort of thought maybe that'd be a good walk-up song. I guess I'll leave it a surprise for the wedding. If you're at the wedding,
I will be at the wedding.
All
I
right.
will be there.
What's new with you?
A lot, but just recently, I as many of you guys know, I drive a 71 F100, and I love my truck. Its nickname is Sanchez, but daily driving a 71 F100 comes with its challenges. So I've been looking, and I'm probably gonna get a car on Friday. So
Nice. Any ideas what you're looking towards?
Yeah, a Lincoln Continental. So,
all right. Well, unfortunately, I hate to start the show on a downbeat, but before we get tonight's show, I want to acknowledge some tragic breaking news today. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was shot early today during an event in Utah, and it's now been confirmed that he did not survive. No matter where anybody stands politically, this is heartbreaking. Violence like this has no place in our country. Our thoughts with his family, his friends, and everyone who's grieving tonight. As a country, may disagree on politics, but we should all be able to agree that settling those differences through violence is unacceptable. Let's hope that this moment that pushes people to come together, not tear us farther apart. And now with that said, let's get moving to tonight's show. So, Geno, I know we're going to get into a segment here for you're going to be talking about Raised by Giants. And that's going to be sponsored by our sponsor, FireCam. And let me just do a little shout out here to our sponsor. Give me 1 second here. We'd like to thank our sponsor, FireCam, the one and only manufacturer of helmet cameras built for firefighters. For over a decade, FireCam has been hell-bent on making durable, heat-resistant cameras worthy of the fire service. But they don't stop there. FireCam also offers dash cams, body cams, drones, and more. Their new FireCam Blackjack flashlight kit is a must-have for interior firefighting. With 3 helmet cameras to choose from, the FireCam Mini 1080, the FireCam 1080, and the FireCam Onyx 4K, there's an option for every firefighter. Order now at firecam.com. All right, it is to you, Geno, Raised by Giants.
All right, before I start this, I'll just let everybody know this little thing that I wrote here. It's abbreviated, but I wrote an hour-long submission to the FDIC, which I chickened out sending. And I wrote it as a sermon, and 10 years ago, maybe, if not more, but I abbreviated a little bit, and I'll just jump right into it. So, Raised by Giants. It all starts with your family, to be honest. I'll explain. Good dads let their boys be boys. Siblings, namely brothers, if any of you out there have siblings, especially brothers, if you're a male, your brothers keep you in place, but they also introduce you to things that your parents can't. Raised by Giants. Then, as you find your way outside the family, you begin to meet people who cause some sort of influence on your life. Mostly good, but sometimes bad. And I'm talking about your early teenage years, your sports, your hobbies, your friendships that you grow, things like that. Raised by Giants. As you age, you find your way on this big floating rock, and you begin to be exposed to even more of the world. As far as me, that was walking into the firehouse to see what was going on. These people still influence me to this day. Raised by Giants. As you pick a career, either right out of high school or after college, you really start seeing and seeking influence from others besides your family. Raised by Giants. My first major influence outside of my small circle was a police chief named Michael Tilburn Gresham. Keith's laughing because he knows who I'm talking about. And at the time, he was the police chief of Clairton, one of my first real police jobs. An impressive man who spoke softly and guided me in police work like no one has ever since. I could go on for hours talking about that man, raised by giants. But before that, the next part began when I was hired as a dispatcher in a small town. Keith can attest to this because he also worked as a dispatcher in that exact same department. The same place my father was a cop at. Those other police officers had a major impact on the rest of my life and as my journey as a cop. But raised by giants. And finally, in 2001, I walked into the firehouse in McKeesport and shook hands. And excuse me if I get choked up over this. Shook hands with a man who would not only change my life forever, but as a person would become my best friend on and off the job, raised by giants. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to say goodbye to those giants, and that's what is hardest in life as far as I'm concerned. So to end this little talk, do me a favor. Find your giants. Embrace the good and embrace the bad. Take a little bit from both, but let them know that they were part of it. And try not to suck. And remember, those giants had giants too.
Yeah, it's awesome. I was laughing a little bit there, Chief Gresham. Obviously, I just remember back in the day when I was dispatching, he'd call in that distinct voice. He didn't even have to say who it was. He'd just call in. He'd be like, "Oh, it's Chief Gresham."
And the funny you say that is because I was like, for some reason, he had a very quiet and a very, I don't know how you would say it, a flexion in his voice. And for some reason, I could understand every word that man said.
Yeah.
So we had a TAC channel in Clairton at the time, and it was a non-repeated channel that we would talk to each other on. And he would say something on the radio, and somebody would get on the TAC channel and say, "Geno, what did he say?" And I just love the man. He's still alive, thank God. I just seen him a couple years ago. He was driving the church bus, and he was parked in Sam's Club lot. And I rolled up on him and gave him the biggest hug. And I still to this day miss that guy. I really do. So, Michael, if you probably will never see this, but if you do, God bless you. Thank you.
You're the Gresham Whisperer.
Yeah, I was the Gresham Whisperer.
All right. Well, that was awesome, Geno. Thank you. So wanted to get into a little bit. Obviously, it's the eve of 9/11 anniversary tomorrow. So before we get to that, I just want to throw a little thing up here. So we don't have a big thing planned here for the anniversary of 9/11, but we sort of just wanted to obviously take a moment to reflect back on the events of 24 years ago. But I sort of wanted to get some interaction from our viewers tonight. And I'm sort of curious how many of you that are viewing were actually alive on 9/11/2001. So if you were, just say you were alive back then in the comments. If you weren't, if you're in school, let us know if you're in school. Or if you're already involved in your adult career, public safety, whatever it was, let us know. And if you care to share your story about where you're at on 9/11, feel free to do so. And we're just going to take our turns here, and nothing real deep here, but I just remember my day on 9/11. Actually was off, and unusually I woke up early in the morning because I'm not a real morning person. But I remember throwing on the TV, and one of the national news channels was on, and they were covering the first plane that already hit the first tower. And I remember just looking at the images of it and just thinking, of the high rises that we trained in Pleasant Hills with 8 stories at the most. And I remember how tough that was climbing those stories up to the top floor and just thinking like, oh my God, what are those guys up against? And to climb all the way up to the top of that building to, and just the amount of fire that was showing on TV. And then, of course, while I was contemplating that and thinking about that, the second plane hit, and instantly, just as with everybody, we all knew what was going on. We're under attack, and this wasn't a tragic accident. This is something more sinister. But I remember talking to my mom shortly after that. She was at work, and I just remember she was crying talking to me on the phone because the office she worked at had several sales guys, and they were out on flights going to different parts of the country. And they were concerned because back then it wasn't easy to get in touch like it is today with, how smart our cell phones are and stuff. I mean, there was obviously cell phones back then, but it wasn't easy just to text somebody and check in, or various other apps to check in, or even track their locations to see where they're at. So they were having a difficult time trying to get hold of all their sales guys to make sure they're actually okay. And then ironically, I was working at Whitehall Police Dispatch at the time as a dispatcher there. And somebody called off for the 311 shift, and they called and left a message asking if I was going to come in, and I was not going to go in because I was going to try to enjoy my day off. But then a little bit later, I was talking to my mom again, and I mentioned that, and she thought that they were calling me in because of what was going on. So she sort of said, like, "Don't you think you have to?" And so then she made me reconsider. So I ended up taking the afternoon shift at Whitehall, and I remember just how weird it was. We had 2 phone calls throughout the entire shift, and both of them were people concerned about planes flying around. And I remember thinking, like, what do we get? Like, what's Whitehall Police going to do about a plane flying around?
Right.
So, but, and then I remember one of the guys came in from off the road, and he said how strange it was. They said, there is nobody out there. He said, it's like the old West movies where you see cobble, or what's that? Not cobble webs. What do you call those things that roll down the road? I can't think of what it's called, but
one of those.
Yeah. But he said there was just nobody out there, and I was just thinking how weird. Cobbleweed. There you go. Tumbleweed. So I was just thinking how weird that is now, because I think back then, obviously, everybody didn't have the information we do now on our phones. So everybody had to go home and actually sit around as a family around the TV and watch the events as they were unfolding. So nobody was out. All the stores closed, and obviously everybody was scared. Nobody knew what was going on. So people closed up stores, and everybody just went home with their family. So that's pretty much it. I mean, that's where I was. Just an odd time. And obviously everybody says, you'll never forget exactly where you're at that day when you found out about it.
No.
But over to you, Geno. What was your story for that day?
I was at work in McKeesport in number 1 firehouse. I had only been on the job for less than a month. I got hired on August 13th. That was September 11th. And back then, we weren't allowed to turn the TV on before 5 o'clock at work. It just was like a big no, unless something was going on or whatever. But back then, the City Hall for McKeesport was all in one building, which is right where the fire and police station is now. Yeah. They call that the public safety building, but back then it was City Hall. So you had all the clerks upstairs, the mayor was upstairs, every part of the city was working out of that building. And we didn't know at first. We didn't know the first plane was hit, or the first plane had hit. One of the girls from upstairs came down and said, "Turn the TV on. A plane just hit the World Trade Center." And so we found the controller, turned the TV on, and as the TV came to light, the second plane was hitting the second tower, and it was chaotic at work. We were because no one knew, you know how chaotic. I mean, I was at work, so it was very chaotic. No one knew what was going on. There was word that the plane that possibly was the plane that crashed, Flight 93, that crashed in Shanksville, was flying overhead over Western PA. So and again, I don't fault the leadership of the department at the time, because they were in uncharted territory, obviously. But we went and parked our fire trucks under bridges because we just didn't know, you know what I mean? And as the news unfolded in the Pentagon, and then obviously Shanksville, it was a rather stressful day. I remember the state had called, I'm assuming my fire chief, and asked for credentials of firefighters that were from, because we were an IFF local, they're an IFF local, called and asked for like credentials. Hey, put together credentials of people in your department that could possibly go and help. So that was taking a while. And then finally there was a stand down order that they didn't need any more help. later on in that afternoon, that early evening, no one else come. No one self-deploy, blah, blah, blah. But next year, I think we should probably have on the 2 people who, in my department, who did self-deploy to New York City. And I won't even attempt to tell their story, but it's a pretty special story on how they got there and how they bonded with a firehouse in Greenwich Village. And next year, at the 25th anniversary, I believe that we should probably have those 2 guys on, and they'd be able to, give their story, it's a pretty emotional, it's a pretty moving story. So we can reach out to those 2 guys and have them on for next year. But before I end my little thing, it was such a tragic event, obviously, it changed the world, changed this country permanently. And we talk about where you were, or where I was, or where Dan was, or, wherever everybody was. But I'd like to steer away from that tragedy a minute and talk about the happy things that have come out of that horrible day in New York City, specifically New York City. And that's the kids that not only went through the most horrible thing that could happen to a young person, which is losing a parent suddenly. Keith, you can attest to that, losing your father at a young age. They grieved, they struggled, and at some point decided to pick up the torch that their parents carried, and they joined to carry on that legacy. And doing some research, tip of the lid to what I believe is almost 70 children from parents who were lost in the fire department on 9/11 have now joined the ranks and now hold some leadership positions in the department. So I would give every one of them the biggest hug possibly ever that you could give, because to come out of that like a phoenix as they did, and to do that job and to carry on their name and their legacy of their family, props to those people. And again, I believe that's the brightness that I see.
Yeah, and I meant to add, I had my notes and sort of forgot this, but one of the things I sort of remember after the after effects of 9/11 is how, as a country, we came together. And I was trying to think of some good, that came from 9/11, if you can find any good. But I remember just driving around and everybody, how patriotic everybody was. Everybody had a flag flying outside their house. And then I'll never forget George Bush standing on the POW talking that day, and just that perfect line when somebody said, "We can't hear you," and he said, "I can hear you, and the whole world hears you, and soon the people that took down these buildings are going to hear from all of us."
Yeah.
And I just remember like how powerful that was, and just the feeling
so
as a country coming together.
There's some good right there.
Yeah, sit in 6th grade and watch what happened. The moment he knew he was going to be a firefighter.
God bless you.
Yep, we became Americans again after that day. So
shout out to Ryan. What's up, brother?
And I think that did a lot of people either joined the military after that, or got into public service because of what they saw and they wanted to do something to.
And with the way everything is today in the world, I believe that someone, and again, I'm not an entrepreneur or anybody that in that world, but maybe we should print out some 9/12 shirts with an American flag on it, because everybody talks about what you felt like on 9/12, and how you really embraced your patriotism, had a whole new respect for the real heroes of this world. So, I mean, if you're out there, send me a percentage.
Yeah, somebody's going to steal your idea now.
I don't care.
So Dan, what was your day like?
Is my mic on?
Yeah.
I was at home working, watching TV, just like a lot of people, and watched the whole thing unfold. Like Gene said, there were rumors that the plane was flying over Western PA. So I went to the elementary school, got my daughter out of there, got her home safe, and pretty much stayed home and watched everything unfold. It's just sad on so many levels, so many lives not lived. because of that attack. It's like an entire missing generation. So yeah, there was some good that came out of it, but it's every year you watch the specials. It's like watching it when it happened. The bravery and the courage of those firefighters that pretty much knew they were not going to come out of there. A lot to be learned for people like that. So I think, Keith, you have a video you're going to play.
Yeah.
And just so people know, the reason it's a video, there's some pictures in there, and we wanted to try to time the pictures with my voice. When I was 13, a small single-engine plane crashed straight into the side of the largest man-made mountain in America, the slag dump. The slag dump sits directly across from an apartment building with an open field behind it that we used to sleep out in. It was a grassy hillside that was higher than the building, provided us with a perfect view of this crash. We watched the Civil Air Patrol stand guard overnight and into the recovery the next day, which involved crews removing the plane parts and human remains from the side of the mountain. Like the movie Stand By Me, I remember the mixture of tragedy and intrigue. I thought about the terrible loss of the single pilot's life and what it must have been like for the recovery crews to have to peel the human remains off the jagged slag edges they were stuck to. Little did I know that would be one of the many plane crashes to take up residence in my head in the years to follow. I joined the fire department shortly after that. Back then, nobody told you what to expect or what you'd see. They had you sign a single-page application with your name and address. It had just one job-related question. Why do you want to be a fireman? Everyone wrote the same answer: to help people. No thought, no interview, no expectations, just a quick vote and you were in. Get this kid some gear and off you went into the biggest life-changing move of your life. There were several small plane crashes, mostly in West Mifflin, on takeoff and approach to the county airport. I have dozens of pictures in my head of the carnage left behind from these small plane crashes into trees, homes, and into the trailer court that for some strange reason remained positioned directly in the approach path to the main runway for way too long. These crashes almost never left anyone alive. We would rush to the scenes, foam down the fuel, extinguish the fire, light the scene, and wait for the coroner before removing the victims. Then I lost my best friend in Pan Am 103 that was blown up over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing 259 people on board and 11 more on the ground. Barry was a firefighter at 232, a great person, and was in my wedding. His family finds comfort in telling people close to Barry about the trip they took to Lockerbie. It was months after the crash, and they still had no confirmation or physical evidence that Barry was found. They visited a warehouse that was set up in the fields where the search for remains and personal belongings was still going on. They went to the check-in window to see if there was anything of Barry's there yet. While they waited for the person to check, one of the searchers came in from the field to turn in Barry's wallet. The odds of that happening at the exact time they were at the building months after the crash could only be taken as a sign that Barry was there helping the searchers bring some closure. Several weeks later, the family received information that allowed them to have a funeral, burial, and finally closure. Hearing this story, I had no way of knowing that one day I would be a searcher in a field bringing home DNA for family's closure. They say these things accumulate in your mind over time, take up residence there, and come at you when you don't expect it. Again, they didn't teach you to expect trauma, and when it hit, you didn't talk about it. Just do your job and move on to the next one. Locally, our next one was September 8th, 1994, U.S. Air Flight 427 that crashed here in Hopewell Township. We had several firefighters that were called up to assist in the cleanup. It was as bad as it gets. One of our firefighters, Evan Weaver, lost his dad, one of 132 people on board. Out of respect for him and other family members, I'm going to skip the details of this one. Then 9/11 happened. The Twin Towers, the Pentagon, the open field in Shanksville. Many firefighters from all over our great country assisted in the recovery and cleanup of these historic, tragic crashes. Flight 93 in Shanksville was the one our local crew was assigned to. Our trip to the crash site was called Operation Final Sweep. The task at hand was to spend 2 days at the site and clean up any evidence, plane parts, and human remains that were missed by previous searchers under the watchful eye of the FBI, coroner, and other officials. I was assigned team leader to our sector, which was an area of about 10 acres. It included a pond which was just beyond the impact site, some open field between the impact site and the tree line, and a heavily wooded area with a cabin-type residence. My crew was Mark Grimm, Mike Grimm, Tommy Benoit Jr., Adam Gallus, and the late Dale Wagner. Our instructions were to look for small plane parts, other evidence, and human remains, which we were told would be grayish in color, as this operation was about 10 days or more after the crash. If my crew found evidence, we were to give it to the FBI representative on site. If we found plane parts, we were to take them to the plane part table for tagging. If they found human remains, they were going to bring them to me, and I would meet up with the coroner and hand them off. There were two 55-gallon drums on site for this operation. One was for plane parts, the other was for human remains and body parts. Both were filled by the time the operation ended. I remember sending Tommy Benoit Jr. up a tree to retrieve a large plane part. We weren't supposed to climb trees, but he wanted to get that part so bad, I said go for it. And we found another on the roof of the cabin, along with many small parts scattered throughout our sector. I found the tiny corner of a check that belonged to one of the hijackers and gave it to the FBI. Our crew found human remains, lots of it, flesh and bones, pretty much everywhere we looked. But what sticks with me today and will forever is something Adam Gallus handed me. He came over to me and said, "Chief, I don't know what this is, but I think it might be something for the coroner." He then reached out and put a heart in my hand. It was very small and had a piece of rib bone stuck through it. I knew it was a heart because I could see the arteries that had been ripped off. What haunts me to this day is whose heart was it? Was it small because it was a child? Or was it small because it was 10 days to the elements and dehydrated? Was it the heart of a hijacker? Was it an evil soul or an innocent heavenly soul? I will never know, but I feel like it was the heart of an innocent woman or child. We held many souls in our hands that weekend. The other thing I remember is the first night after the day one search. You just spent the day crawling through a field of death. You're in a hotel bar, and the band makes an announcement. A special shout out to all the firemen for doing what they do. It was like, thanks for picking up the body parts all day. Are there any songs you want to hear? With all due respect to the general public that we serve, they know it's a jungle out there, but they are in an entirely different jungle. Our jungle is a whole different world that can only be seen by those that live it. God bless them all. Live the good life while we still have it to live.
All right. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. I could just say a thing. I knew you guys went up there. I didn't volunteer for it. I think I was like, I was in McKeesport. I was, obviously doing that thing. But that's the first time I ever heard that story. And I've known you my whole life. That was moving. Thanks for sharing that. Really. So what do you got, Keith?
So going to our news segment. So, well, unfortunately, again, this week, we got a couple firefighter line of duty deaths. A Georgia firefighter was killed in a warehouse fire. It was a master firefighter, Preston Fain, 53, of DeKalb County Fire Rescue, died after being trapped in a burning warehouse while attempting to rescue a fellow firefighter. He was a 21-year veteran of the department. He served at Station 24 in Stone Mountain, was highly trained in specialized rescues, leaves behind a wife and 5 children. Our thoughts, prayers, obviously, with him, his family, and his fellow firefighters. What can you say? Like, he lost his life trying to save one of his own. Luckily, the other firefighter, I guess he was trying to save, was fortunately able to get out. The other line of duty death is in Indiana, volunteer firefighter. This is in DuBois County. Luke, I can't even pronounce his last name. I apologize. Gelhausen. 41. He's a 17-year veteran of the department. He was killed in a single vehicle crash Sunday night while responding to a structure fire. Again, our thoughts and prayers with him and his family and his fellow first responders from that department. So we have obviously a couple stories from the city of Pittsburgh. I think it's about a week ago where the guys were electrocuted.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, before Pittsburgh firefighters shocked battling a blaze. They were treated at a local hospital. I think it was last Thursday morning after being shocked while working a fire in the south side slopes. All were in stable condition, expect to recover. Some already been released from the hospital. And I think you had a little bit more
Well, not on
Details
that
of-
specific incident, but obviously been doing this for a few years and in an urban environment. And before I start, has anybody got any updates on those guys and how they doing?
I do not. I just know that they're all, in stable condition. A couple were released already, but I don't have the details if they're still in the hospital. Dan, do you have anything?
I'm pretty sure they're all out and good.
Okay, good. I just didn't want to go any further without saying, our prayers are with you guys. But I've had ladders fall into service lines. Luckily, when a ladder did fall into the service line, because from what I understand, they had a 35 up on a delta side of the building, close to or around the area where the service connection comes in for the electricity of the building, and it slid on the box gutter. And what appears to me, it looks like it slid on the box gutter, which are unique to begin with if you've never fought a fire with a house with box gutters on. But it slid and connected to the service line, and I'm assuming that's what in it. From what I understand, and from what Dan was saying, and friends of ours who work there, it electrified all of the gutters on the house. So if you could have been on the Bravo Charlie side of the building, and if that metal was connected to that metal, you're going to get shocked. And I felt that shock before. I didn't get electrocuted and have to go to the hospital, but I've definitely been electrified, if we'll say. And then not a funny story, but a funny story is one of the deputy chiefs. We were fighting a fire on Versailles Avenue in a bakery, and there was a false floor, like where you go down, like where they kept goods, and the metal counter, and his foot fell through there, and there was a live electrical line in that hole. And then every time he would reach and touch the counter, because it was like metal track with glass, he would get shocked. And we're all standing there, and it was a pretty decent fire. And all you would hear would be him grabbing it and then be like, and then we thought there was something wrong. Like, we didn't know what was wrong. And he was trying to pull himself out of the hole by grabbing this bakery counter. And he was getting shocked that we didn't know it. But he was fine. He didn't have to go to the hospital or anything like that. But it's funny, but it's also could be very, very serious. If that was a 220 line running through that void space, other outcomes would have probably happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, electricity is probably one of our biggest enemies, because what do we bring to every fire? Water,
Right.
and metal objects.
Yeah.
So you really have to pay attention. And I had heard some comments online were like, oh, those guys in Essentials didn't look up or say clear. Well, it had nothing to do with that. It was simply an accident, and luckily no one suffered too badly because of it.
Yeah, of course, everybody's going to jump the gun and come to conclusions before they know the facts of what
Facebook's
actually happened.
amazing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so I remember, Dan, I don't know if you remember this years ago. Painter, we had a video of this for some reason. There was a line laying down it was Sunrise Drive, I think, and he got like real close to the line. He was insisting the line was dead. I remember when Duquesne Lake got there, they're like, no, that line was charged. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, the road was wet, but it was all dry around the line. And he kept saying, oh no, it's dead. It's all good.
Yeah.
And he just kept like getting closer to it. And then I had to yell at him and get him out of the way.
I remember that video. He goes, Dan, you saved my life.
Yeah. Keith, I wanted to put those Squirrel Hill pictures up. You kind of blew through that.
No, we didn't get Squirrel yet.
Oh, you're going to do that yet? Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the south side election.
All right.
Yeah, you can start throwing them up now if you want. So the next news story we're going to get to is in the city of Pittsburgh. There was a massive fire at the Jefferson Apartments complex on Ford Avenue in Squirrel Hill neighborhood. Fire broke out around 8 a.m. and escalated to a 4-alarm response with 73 firefighters on scene. Crews fought defensively due to the building's age and electrical fire in the basement, which complicated the battle. The structure has been condemned. Fire Chief Daryl Jones has recommended emergency demolition. Fortunately, all occupants were accounted for, and the ramp for Ford Avenue to Parkway East westbound was closed during the firefight.
So we put these pictures up on Facebook, courtesy of Toki Photography. But I just wanted to say 73 firefighters on scene. I think there was 30 residents out of a home, 2 cats rescued. But what I want to say is, great job. As far as I know, nobody hurt in a fire like that. That's amazing. It was the roof collapsed. The floors were collapsing in there, and they did the smart thing, stayed back and put it out from far.
You could attest to these large fires, Dan, rolling up to big buildings on fire. You've been there multiple times. I've been there multiple times. And it's literally, as an incident commander, chief officer, it's a bad day. It's a really bad day. It's buckle up. We're going to be here for a long time. And I shout out to those guys. Kudos, tip of the lid. Nobody was hurt. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing. We would pull up something like that. First thing I would probably start thinking of is what kind of food the Sally truck's going to have that day.
Hey, you get bologna and mustard or bologna and ketchup.
You have to
Your
eat
choice.
the one hot dog on the stick the wrong. If I ate a hot dog on a stick one time, I will never, ever, ever entertain that thing again. Ever. I'll have their cookies and their coffee.
So the next thing I got here, just a minor note. McDonald's doing a fundraiser in Western Pennsylvania. I think it's actually all of Pennsylvania. I tried to find out as much information as I could on it, but it's sort of hard to get all the departments. But tomorrow on 9/11, if you order through the McDonald's app, the McDonald's that you order from, that local department is going to get 10% off the app-based sales. They're going to donate a minimum of $250 to the department. And it seems like it's mostly fire departments that are getting this. And if it's not a fire department, it's some veterans organizations. I'm guessing maybe because there's some McDonald's like in paid areas where maybe the department didn't want the donation, so they're going to give it to a veterans organization. But so yeah, if you're interested in that, I guess maybe look on Facebook for your local fire department or just order off the app and eat McDonald's tomorrow, and hopefully your local department get 10% of the sales. And then the last thing I had for my news stories, I just thought this was interesting because it's one of our discussions last week. But Derry Township VFD is trying to put in for this is in Bradenville. Seeking $121,000 in state grant funding to finish the second floor of the station. The plan upgrades include bunk rooms for male and female firefighters, showers, a kitchen, and a training area. Once complete, the department hopes to support extended stays and potentially launch a live-in program for college students who serve as firefighters while pursuing their degree. I think live-in programs are a great solution. As we talked, obviously, Dylan last week. I mean, everything has its drawbacks, stuff like he mentioned, maybe their home response sort of dwindled a little bit, but all in all, I mean, it sounds like most days they got 8 guys in their station to respond to calls all the time. So I think if it's a struggling community that can't afford to do anything else, I think live-in program is a great way to start to get some staffing in your station.
I would say it's a temporary fix for a problem that we're going to have to keep looking at.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not saying it's the end solution,
no,
but yeah, it's better than doing nothing.
Absolutely.
But that is all I had today. So yeah, before I go to you though, Geno, I did want to mention, so next week we're going to have Captain Matt Prentice on. He was on before, Charleroi captain. He's going to talk about their recent trench rescue as a successful save. So we're looking forward to, he's going to be on with his chief and somebody else that was there on scene. So we're looking forward to that. Some future guests we're going to be having on the show. We, been in talks with Chief Deputy Fire Marshal Donald Brucker. He's going to be coming on to talk primarily about PTSD, PTSI. So we're looking forward to getting that scheduled. We got Attorney Kim Hauser coming up in a couple of weeks. He's going to be discussing legalities of shift crews. We're going to have Lieutenant Colonel Mike Thatcher on to talk about leadership. And we're in talks with the State Fire Commissioner, Tom Cook, and we're trying to get that scheduled to have him on. So got a lot of interesting shows going to be coming up here. And if, again, make sure you subscribe, go over to YouTube, subscribe to our channel. We want to give that FireCam away. We're about 380 something subscribers right now. We want to get to 500 so we can get that away. If you guys have any comments or suggestions, please drop them. Our email address, they're dofirstin@gmail.com. So that's all I have. Geno?
I'd like to say a few things about the recent political violence before we end the program. And it's not in any, I'm not a political person at all. I would never say that I was a Republican or a Democrat or whatever. That's just not who I am as a person. But the political violence in this country needs to stop. I don't know what the fix is. I really don't. But I do know one thing, and I hope everybody here that's listening, I don't know how many people are here or how many people are going to watch this someday, is hug your family a little bit tighter every night. And I can't say this enough. Please do everything in your power to protect yourself and your family when you leave your residence. You owe it to them. You owe it to yourself. And you owe it to this country, to be honest, as a patriot. You owe it to your country to be carrying a firearm. That's all I have to say about that, Keith. And the last thing, obviously, is try not to suck.
All right, everybody.
Got a lot of sucking going on right now.
We do. Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll catch you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thanks for watching.